Okay, great. All right, we will call this meeting of the Grand Marais Planning Commission to order. We have an agenda before us. Did anybody see anything that they wanted to add or change in the minutes or anything else? All right, nobody. That's great. I would accept a motion for the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a move and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So first thing up is we have our Lindstrom conditional use request. The thing I would draw our attention to first with that is when we look at the, I guess it's item F, the accessory residential use. That was the thing that we worked on so hard with this. And I feel like this really gets to our standards of what it was we were asking of anybody, but specifically of Josh in this case, to do. And I feel like as you go down through this and you look at what is presented to us, it seems like we have a pretty full response to that, you know, where each one of those points seems to have been answered. And so I feel like there's a lot, you know, we got a lot of information. Josh is here now, and if we had questions, if commissioners have questions for him, we could have him come forward. Do you have questions? Yep.
We didn't get any comments, by the way, on this one. I don't know if anybody here wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's the public hearing part.
Yeah.
I suppose you should ask them.
I could ask them. Was there anybody here who wanted to speak to the Lindstrom variance?
This vote is cast on.
Okay, I'll take that as a no.
So this is not the final vote.
I didn't think so.
Okay.
But, okay.
Okay.
I guess my question is probably for city staff.
Oh, okay.
As far, I agree with you, we worked really hard to try
Yeah.
to come up with a compromise for dwelling units in the business park. Refresh my memory.
Yeah.
How many are there in the business park right
Currently?
now that we've already approved? Are we talking? Think of two.
I can think
Couple.
of two.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
maybe 3.
okay.
But is that, and are they all conditional use, or is it owner occupied? Because that is different.
Yeah, that's what
And a couple of the ones that are already in the business park are in the zone that we allowed this use originally. So the idea that it was in the entire business park was a later thought
Yeah.
when we added this
Gotcha.
list of conditions.
Okay.
So this might be the first that we've done after the
After the-
changes.
Okay.
That's where I'm trying to remember
Yeah, okay.
how many there were.
Yeah, but that's right, because there were all the ones that were along the
Or it might be the
side.
second, I guess I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
There's definitely a few up there.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know, I thought I'm not good with architectural drawings, but I was hoping Anton would speak to egress and outgress, and it matches what we,
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess when I looked at it, it did, I mean, like the biggest thing, like, hey, this can't be a shell for having residential use was kind of the thing. And clearly, we know what the use is for this property. And it seems, you know, the plan shows the dwelling unit or whatever around the back, you know, so that all makes sense. It has its own entrance exit. That could, at least to my eyes, it looked like it.
Yeah, it meets all the requirements in our ordinance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm supposed to have a plan of the building.
I had another one, but now I can't remember what it was. So, yeah, I think it all matches, and I just want to clarify that it's employee housing for FICA or their subsidiaries.
Right.
And if it changes hands, that condition still applies. It has to be used by the new business owner if it changes hands, correct?
If
Or does it go away?
FICA changes hands.
Yes.
Yeah, if a new business moves into the spot, the permit's not the same.
Okay,
Doesn't-
then it
Conditional
starts
doesn't
to
yeah.
come
It
back for
starts-
us.
starts
Okay,
over
just
again.
want to make sure I
So
know.
I could.
You know, Josh, could you come forward to the microphone there? I did just have one question that I couldn't, it seemed like it got cut off in our minutes that we have here. I was wondering, what's your expectation of the number of people that would be living in this unit?
Probably 1 to 2. I mean, it's a very small unit. I mean, if I hired someone who had a family and wanted to move up here, it probably would act more as a transition place for them until they found a place that was suitable. But,
Right.
I mean, the unit itself is, there's a loft bedroom and, yeah, it's small, so
Okay.
1 to 2.
Okay, yeah. It's just one of those things that was hanging out there that wasn't addressed elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great. I mean, I think, yeah, the plans seem to have been developed with the understanding of what was required up there, and maybe if the process of how one does it is, maybe, right, having to seek the conditional use permit, right, I think maybe wasn't understood, but everything you had, I think, addresses it, so I'd make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a double second. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks. Thanks, Josh.
Can you clarify it then? There's
Yeah.
something happens next week, though?
The city
Yeah,
council
it'll go-
takes a recommendation and then makes a final decision.
Yep, we just make
Am
the
I
rec-
looking at the city
Well,
council as well?
Looking at
You're looking at
bits
two of them,
Okay.
so.
Because I know the architects don't want to even, our next step is to place our SIP order, and they want to wait till the light's completely green, so that would be safe then
A week from
a
today,
week from today.
6:50 or so.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
All right, and it's not cooperating. There we go.
When I scroll down so far, mine would just jump back up to the top.
I thought mine was glitching out.
That was mine
it's-
too.
Page 29 is where the next item is if you're looking.
I can't get to 29 on
Yeah,
my
it just,
phone.
it
It puts you
resets.
back up to the title page.
Let me,
Hard copy.
I'm getting there.
We've got laptops, phone users.
All right, and next we have the dry variance request. Do we have anybody here who wants to speak to that? Oh, great. Can you please state your name and go ahead and tell us what you want to tell us?
Carolyn Dry. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Moody. I'm an architect as well.
Oh, I'm not an architect, I'm just a designer.
Oh, okay.
I can't check all the boxes,
Oh,
but
I
thank
know.
you.
So anyhow, I'm asking for an accessory dwelling unit made from my garage at 406 Second Avenue East. And I have pictures which I'd like to be allowed to bring up there and show you. I got one email from a neighbor, Mary Sanders and Doug Sanders, saying that they thought it was a great idea because it would increase the rental stock in the community. And they had questions about parking and the propane tank, which I will attempt to answer. And also there was a question from Nan Harmeyer about an easement that is there, and I understand that that Patrick had it sent out to the lawyer, and it was said that it, doesn't pose a problem. The roof of the garage is a couple feet over the adjacent property, which is owned by Tom and Nancy. So, I can come up here, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, of course.
Okay. So this is the layout, and, let's see, the street is here, this is Second Avenue East, and this is the garage, this is the house, and it's a double-wide driveway. And I figured that not everybody's gonna park like that, but I've got 14 cars that can fit in there. So, you wouldn't do that, but I can park a lot of cars or a propane tank in there, and, so there's a lot of space there. This is a photograph of it. This is the letter from, the email from Doug and Mary Sanders. Here's some other photographs. Here's a copy of the, this is a copy of the easement that was, I guess, approved by the lawyer. And here are neighboring properties.
This was included in our packet.
This,
Yeah, that one was.
I think I wanted this back.
You can have all of this back.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yes.
And this is across the street from me. This is a single-family home. They have a small driveway. That's the Hawkinson's house. This is a house directly across from me, which is now a rental. It's a duplex. And this is the, I didn't take a picture of the Sanders, I should have. Anyhow, this is the vacant lot next door that's owned by Nan Harmeyer and Tom McCann. So the driveway is like 100 feet long. It's huge.
So the, you said that the lawyer, what lawyer said that there was no harm, no foul?
So,
Yeah.
when we got the application, we just wanted to confirm that the eave of Carolyn's garage hangs over into their property, McCann property, 2 feet, and that was
The corner.
concerning to us, so we sent that off to Flaherty and Hood.
Okay.
And they confirmed that we could proceed with the process. So, I mean, they didn't feel that there was a legal issue with continuing with the.
They didn't disqualify it.
Okay.
Got it.
That doesn't mean there's not a problem. They didn't say there's not a problem.
That's right, yeah.
They said
It's
you
in
can
your
consider
court
this.
Yeah.
So, man, north is down? Was that what the flower's pointing
I didn't
to?
understand this. I mean, there's second, so the garage, there's the driveway.
So
Goes over the corner.
the driveway is here? Or, sorry, the garage corner, their property's to the north of you?
Yeah, the
Yes.
vacant, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's vacant property. In the corner, this is where the thing, I think that's the corner that goes over or something.
Oh.
Anyhow, it's the.
Oh, this
I
is
can show you
theirs.
in the picture
Gotcha.
where it
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
over.
yeah.
It goes
Okay,
over
that makes more
here,
sense now.
slight amount, like 2 feet, just on the corner, because this thing is not parallel to the boundary. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. Okay.
But that blue line
That-
is the boundary?
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite accurate,
No,
but
it's
that's
not.
what they show. The boundary should be like here.
Yeah.
The boundary is the edge of the pavement. So it's
Okay.
right, like there, right, that's the boundary.
County's mapping site is pretty accurate on north-south lines, but certainly not survey accurate.
Yeah.
Sure.
But there's a surveyed easement here that describes the
Yeah.
issue pretty well.
Okay. No,
So we did get another email from, well, there's
3.
from
I
Doug.
think we had 3 or 4. Yeah.
I sent 5
Five.
emails altogether.
In addition to the one, or was that, did you include?
5 total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that part of that is because the duplex across the street has been changed into rentals now, and one of the people doesn't do anything about his muffler and all of that kind of thing, so, there's probably a change in sentiment, but I don't think that would apply to, the way I do things.
Sure.
Yes, I didn't see this one.
I saw the one from Tom and Nancy. Oh, there we go.
I didn't see that one.
Well, they're here, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there anybody else want to speak to? Yeah, please come on up and take
Yeah, you can go ahead and take those.
a seat in front of the microphone. Sorry to hijack you.
No, it's fine.
Back.
Mike, come on now. Don't engender that.
We're just all on the same team, right?
Are you guys ready for me?
We're ready for you.
Oh, all right, okay, I'm Doug Sanders, and I'm an immediate neighbor, just to the south of Carolyn, and we've been good neighbors, and we've even had joint projects together. We recently tackled some pine trees
Oh, yeah.
together,
Yep.
worked together on that. And when I saw the request for the variance, I'm the one that sent an email directly to Carolyn, email because she's not always there. She's got I believe, a residence down in Winona also, too. But I complimented her on thinking about more housing for the county. You know, having more housing by converting the garage to housing. And anyway, 2nd Avenue East, as you go up from the post office and you get to 3rd Street, that's the first street you come to, all of a sudden, 2nd Avenue East becomes, I think, the narrowest avenue in Cook County, except maybe for where Stacy, now Johnson, 3rd Street is pretty narrow too. 3rd Avenue is pretty narrow too. So maybe it's a tie. Also, 2nd Avenue, from 3rd Street up, there's no curbs. And we continually have traffic going up and down 2nd Avenue East to the post office. They come down from the hills. They come down 2nd Avenue East to the post office. Then they go up and they go back up to the hills. And anyway, we pretty much have people parking on the side. There's no curbs. It's kind of sad that cars go up into people's yards. Well, there is an easement. There is a city easement along these. But the neighbors on 2nd Avenue East do a pretty good job taking care of their lots right up to narrow 2nd Avenue East. And I would think that with the post office right at the bottom there, each one of you has experience going up 2nd Avenue East or coming down 2nd Avenue East. It's a challenge. Even today, I just happened to notice, I do yard work out there, that there was a visitor for Carolyn. Where they parked? They parked out on the street. And
Today?
no, the one with the bicycle on the back. I said, visiting you, parked on the street. But fortunately, well, maybe not, it just happened to be eased up into your yard easement. But so in my email to Caroline, I said, what if that vacant lot next to you was used for off-street parking? Well, Tom and Nancy own that lot, and they don't want to sell it. They've got a dream for the future there about that lot, and so that's the issue. And anyway, Carol and the rest of you, by spring next year, we're going to have 87 more housing units in the county. That there are 51 up at the Gunflint Blue means outlet. And then the Heights project is bringing in another 36, and these are not for vacation home rental. The Heights project should be open this winter, and the 51 apartments, 22 are going to be affordable now, according to Jason Hale. That'll be ready in the spring, and they're not. Neither of these projects are going to have waiting lists. Refer people to a local realtor toward these. But next spring, we're going to have 87 more housing units, and that'll take some of the pressure out. But I applaud Carolyn for thinking about more housing, but it just won't work. And I would dare say not on 3rd Avenue East either.
Okay.
My comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, all right. I think we've heard, do commissioners have?
Yeah,
Oh,
please.
did you guys want to come
Doug,
forward
would
and
you
talk?
like to swap seats? This
Yep.
gentleman?
I got a new hearing aid, but I'm.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh.
You can still yell at us from the back.
So, I've always subscribed to the adage that good fences make good neighbors. So when I bought this property, maybe 20 years ago or more, I had it surveyed. Survey effectively is the beginning of a fence.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Oh, I'm Tom McCann.
Okay.
And who are you?
Ben Peters.
Who?
Ben Peters.
Ben Peters.
Yeah.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the survey revealed that the original developer of that property had estimated where the property line was. And there is a trespass. And so I brought that to Scott Smith and, just said, now what do we do? And he said, we can do an easement. You've got two options. One is to just permit the trespass with conditions, or remove the trespass. And talking to the young couple that lived there, didn't seem like a neighborly thing to do to make them move the garage. But, so Scott processed the easement, where there's no condition, or there's no use on the north side of that garage. Can't store a canoe or wheelbarrow or anything, it's just vacant. And so every time somebody's turned over on the property, I've let them know that there is an issue, and please don't put anything on the north side of the garage. And that's been pretty much the case with everybody living there. Our goal is to develop that property as a place to live. We live up on Maple Hill now, but, we can see someday in foreseeable future at this point, that we would like to build a home there, a retirement home. And being on that lot it's a small lot. First of all, it's just 100 feet wide. It's 100 by 100. And just barely meets, the square footage for the lot. And we wouldn't dream of building a big house, but we would want to have setback from the neighbors, as much as reasonable. And I've always thought, well, a garage, that's not a problem. I mean, it's just a garage. We've been planting trees there to create a screen, but how fast the trees grow. Hasn't been terribly effective, but long-term, there'll be some. But another house on that location with the additional lighting, the activities that go on in a home, another household. And as Doug said, the driveway situation, actually a sliver, a part of that driveway is on our property as well. The survey monuments embedded in the blacktop. Ken and Molly Hoffman did that. So I think with the additional use on the site, there's already a home, and then there's an apartment with that home, and then a third household. It just seems like it'll be an impact on our, at least what we vision as a good building location for the future.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, Commissioners, do you have any questions that you would like to ask before we go on?
So is that where the lots that Tom and Nancy own now, and the lots that Carolyn, was that all contiguous at one point and split off? Because even, I mean,
No, it was not, no,
it wasn't.
no.
It was always
David
individual.
Berglund owned his lot, and then the Millers, who were relatives of the Sunquists,
Okay.
they own that lot.
I was just trying to figure out how that got so close that it overhang impeded.
It's
Old?
uh,
60s?
less rare than you would imagine, I'd say,
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those where
Yeah,
the corners of houses have kind of been like, drink,
yeah.
right out into the other one. But, yeah, so, from, like, what I'm seeing is that it is on the lot line. That
Yeah.
is very, very close. It is non-conforming. It is legal non-conforming, but it's non-conforming as it is. And generally, you know, the idea is when things are non-conforming, we'd like them to conform someday, even if they're legal and fine and whatever. The idea is that eventually they would maybe get in that direction. So I'm actually disinclined to approve this.
Can I?
For
can I
that
talk?
reason. For that reason, like, I feel like, you know, I do want more housing, obviously. We've all worked on that pretty diligently. We've got very good rules and regs, and we've seen some good response. But I don't think that this is one of them. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I think, was there, and maybe it's again because of the way that my phone was jumping around and trying to read through stuff, like, so there already is an apartment and a house, there's tech,
But I don't use it as an apartment.
sure, you don't, but I guess that's my question, so like if there's already two, but, I mean, so some, you know, that, you didn't also put your garage across the property line,
It's a basement
you know what I mean?
that I put a nice kitchen in because one summer I wanted to have a business up here.
Yeah,
And I had employees living there and working out of the garage, which I got permission for.
yeah,
And, but the house is too leaky. You know, I could smell food and I could hear everything, and I said, forget it. That's
Sure.
like,
yeah,
it's just, so I don't use that. But there are, if I could say a couple of things, there are 2 issues. One issue is, like, it's too close to the, obviously, to the line. And then the other issue is that it's over the line a hair. I mean, 2 feet at one corner. And then, and the amount of pavement that's over is like a little slice too, just because they're not, you know, parallel to each other. But what I'm wondering is, Doug's points about not parking on the street. First of all, I could count on the fingers of one hand the number of times anybody has parked in front of my house on the street. Probably, maybe 4 times in the last year. So I don't park on the street. You know, I have a big driveway, why would I park there?
Yeah.
The people across the street it's a duplex, and they have 2 parking places. And they could make an extra parking place, but they don't, so they park on the street, which, you know, I think is kind of a hazard to back out, and, you know, but they just do that. And that's really, to me, that's the issue. But, you know, it's not really, it's kind of my issue, but not exactly my issue. But the fact that there's no curb and gutter and that there's a narrow, narrow street is really, you know, that's the city issue. It's not my issue. And I'm
Okay.
glad there's 87 units that are coming in. I really think that the city should really look at the sewer system.
Well, we do.
Because I can smell the sewer at my house after the weekends, which, you know, I wonder about 87 units. You know, so, yeah, there's a question about whether my plan is to live there myself. And
Okay.
partly to get away from the people across the street that don't have mufflers and have these kids running around and everything.
Okay.
So I don't know that, I don't think that all those issues necessarily apply to this case
Mhm.
in terms of parking on the street. And in terms of noise and added, congestion and everything, I think that the city should deal with some of these things, but
Okay.
I don't think that it should land on me.
All right, Carolyn, thank you. So, Ben?
Well, so a couple issues. One, we're asking for a setback, like a zero
Yeah.
setback,
I know.
right? Which I wouldn't probably support on a great circumstance, right? But when we look at the findings, right? So one of the things that, is it compatible to the neighborhood? And I think we're hearing from the neighborhood, and they're saying, yeah, this doesn't feel right. This feels like this is going to impact my future plans. This is going to impact, how we experience our street. We know that it's narrow. I drove by it today. It is narrow, right? I don't like that either, right? It's also like, there's no sidewalk there, but the schools are right there, right? Like, that's a problem, right? You put cars there, snowplow, kids walking up and down the street, right? So, yeah, I'm not inclined, and again, I love housing, and I know that density is sort of how we get there to, to that affordability
Yep.
standard, but
Right.
I don't think our plan was to convert garages into these structures. Like, we wanted auxiliary structures. We wanted to have those types of different options available.
Yep.
But I don't think this fits what we tried to do, right? Or
Right.
what we wanted to do. I don't feel like it does. So I'm with you. I'm not inclined to support it.
And I would just, it's the zero setback. We spent a lot of time coming up with our standards, and I had kind of advocated for less, but we came to a compromise that we felt was fair for the residential portion of our community. And we denied another one a while back
Right.
because they wanted to encroach on that standard that we had all just agreed to. I think it's the issue of a zero setback that is not what we wanted for the look of our community going forward. And I think that's, if it was within the setback limit, I'd say, hey, that looks great, that's what
Yep.
we
Well,
wanted.
we wouldn't
but
have a
it-
conversation.
Yeah, but it's the zero setback that is the problem here.
Anton?
Actually, negative setback.
Well, yeah, that's true. But,
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, which isn't, again, that's not really your fault, except for like that you, I guess, knew about it when you bought the property, that existed. I mean, that's the big thing to me is I hear what you're saying about the street, and I run to the post office and the bank on that street occasionally, and know it is narrow, and that isn't also your deal. Of course, the assessment to make it
Certainly be their deal.
would certainly be your deal.
yes,
you
that's
know,
another story.
And that's a whole nother ball of wax. So, it seems like potentially parking, I can see, having what you're saying with the little image that you showed us with parking cars on there. I know what it's like at my house, just with a work truck and 2 vehicles and only 2 people that drive, right? And the shuffling things around, and I think the biggest thing, I could see how you could potentially organize something with who you would rent to if this was converted to figure out how you park and where you don't have to park on the street, which would clarify some of Doug's things. I do have, I have the biggest issue with the fact that it's over the line, and then kind of continuing to build on that. So that, what are we, 5 feet when we shrunk down minimum lot size? Are we 5 feet on sides?
Accessory dwelling unit's 5 feet.
5 feet.
Yeah.
So even that, because it used to be 10, I'm pretty sure, as we went from 10 to 5, if I remember right. Trying to remember back, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
shrunk
do
it up.
8 for primary principal structures.
Okay,
So it went from 10 to 8,
10 to 8.
and 5 for an accessory dwelling unit. We would have allowed this garage at 2.5 feet from the line. Not
Yeah.
on the line, but
Yeah,
But even at 2.5 feet, it wouldn't meet the accessory dwelling unit. It would still require this variance.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest holdup is, I mean, I think also because it's you having it and these folks here, like, I think if, especially the adjacent neighbors, not putting it on Nancy and Tom, like but, right, they currently own that, and that, if they were like, no, we fully support it, like, we think it's fine, it's not gonna have any, we can plan around it, we can be, it sounded like they already kind of did the nice guy thing by not making the people that, however many people back built it over the line. But, to me, I feel like I have to listen to that response, and I credit you with trying to find solutions to it, and, I guess I'd at this point still be opposed to it, so.
All right. Well, I would entertain a motion at this point.
I'd make a motion to deny the variance request.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ask a question.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can ask questions.
Oh, okay. You
Sure.
overheard me. I'm whispering. I want to ask Stacy, have there been any instances in which you've approved such a situation where there's zero variance, but zero, distance? No, you don't approve any of them
I don't-
ever?
I don't,
Oh,
we denied the
I
last
mean-
one, that one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and I can't, not a zero, and I think what we were trying to point out too, it's not just the zero, but the zero is a big piece. It's also the response of the neighbors.
right,
So those two things together.
right.
So you're right, yeah, could it have been a zero in a different situation? Yeah, maybe, possibly. But
Well,
it
you
would
don't
need the
really do
support of
them.
all the neighbors saying like, yeah, we love it, it's great, we want it to happen, blah, blah, blah. And, even if we all say, this is great, we can send it to the council, and the council can say like, oh, you guys are idiots, and they can just say, no.
Done that.
Because the
So-
council has, there's
Good.
been stuff that's been passed through this board that the council has said, no, that's not gonna happen.
Or they've said yes,
Or they said yes.
so,
Yeah.
there you go. So that's just our recommendation, that we'll go forward, and then council will take it up and
Next Wednesday.
go from there.
Next Wednesday.
All right.
I'll be gone.
Next up, we were going to talk about how
There's no reason to say.
we go about doing our conditional use and variance process. And
Does anyone want to know why we're talking about this?
Sure.
I blame her.
I'm saying finally.
Well, I'm glad you don't need an explanation. Ben, you don't either, because you sat into some of these meetings, but this came up during my review to spend a little time this year working on creating some procedures like this that are actually spelled out. And this is the one that I picked to start with because of your feedback, because of the council's feedback, and because of applicants' feedback, that sometimes there's confusion about when things happen or when information is available or just the whole works. And I thought, okay, it seems like a good fit then to start with this. So Patrick put this together for us to look at, and our intent tonight was just to cover it, make sure everything's clear on the today picture. This is what we do. And then before next meeting, we're going to be sending you some surveys to talk a little bit about your experience with this process, and then use that feedback to discuss whether we want to make some changes to this, if that makes sense to
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah.
Sure does.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I know I would enjoy that.
So, number 5, proximity mailing. And we don't find out until 3 days before a meeting, or Friday before a meeting, maybe. Why?
Do you mean when you're
That-
saying that, the responses to the
No,
mailing?
yeah,
No.
we get the responses
Okay.
that get sent in. But I'm wondering why we aren't included on any
Okay.
Wherever it is in the city, we get notified, hey, this is the notice that's going into the paper, heads up.
Yeah,
Is part of,
I know you are.
part of this, also looking at addressing like the proximity, like who gets notified and under what? You know, whether it's a conditional use permit, whether it's a variance, whether it's a, right, so,
It can be. So here's our statement again that we wrote down in the memo. To ensure a clear and timely experience for applicants, neighbors, and board members involved in the proceedings. That's what we want. So, we know that some of this isn't working for you, right? That's why I picked this one to go through first. And so I don't think we need to,
So in the survey
Visit too much
portion
of
of
that
this will
yet.
be an opportunity for
Yeah.
us to have input into.
and what you're gonna tell us is which are the pieces that need to change, or what is it that you're looking for that's not happening? And some of that's not gonna be new information for us,
Yeah.
but I think it'll help just to ask you all and the rest of the city council about their experience with this. Is there other pieces we don't know about, or is it just those couple of issues that we've actually spent some time on already?
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to ask the question why or why not at all anymore with this process. What we want is, well, what do you need? And whether or not there was a reason we did it the way we did it, we want to move towards making sure you're getting what you need on this.
Okay.
And I like
So-
the idea you include the calendar. I think that's helpful for visual
Yep.
people, that when you have applicants, oh, that's the timeline. I'm
Yeah.
on this Tuesday, I won't hear anything until.
Yeah.
So I think that's very helpful.
That is great. Yeah, that was good.
One of the things we struggled with is the dot before number one on the list, the initial discussions with applicants. I'm predicting this is going to be a part we're going to struggle with figuring out how to handle. Because on the calendar, where does that fit? Well, it could be October 2021.
Right, yes.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it just takes a while for somebody to get to the point where they actually make the application. So we're likely just going to focus on that as the kickoff for what we're talking about here. But there's oftentimes things happening beforehand that I think feed into some of the frustration that you experience about this, because things are happening, but no application's been made, so we have nothing to show you, but we've been talking to people, they've been showing us things. And how do we deal with that too? That could be an issue. Maybe I'll fill out the survey.
Yeah.
But there was no, you don't have any questions about any of these steps? They all make sense to you? You recognize them
Yeah.
all?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
That all makes sense.
terrific.
My vision for, like, when we were doing this, I thought, here's the image of what it is now, and I think it'd be cool if, like, that can very well change, but it'd be cool if we end up with creating a new one together. That's our process. So I think of if there's any steps that needed to be added into that list, or steps taken away, but the idea being this is your process, and the end goal of this would be to remake the new one that we all agree this is the process that works, until the next time we have to do it again.
And that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm really glad that you chose this one to start with.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I think, so for now, though, you just want to wait till we do the surveys and then go from there? Is that your intent, or?
I think so. I think
Okay.
we just wanted to introduce it tonight rather than dig too deep into it,
Okay.
since we haven't really talked about it recently. Give us a little more time to collect feedback so we know for sure we've got the top issues to
Yeah,
work on.
Sounds good.
yeah. Very good. All right, and then if we're all good with that, we can go on to the vacation rentals licensing.
This was on an agenda earlier this year.
Yeah.
That not everyone was here, and It was a new item, and so we said, well, we're going to put this on a future agenda. We've made a few changes to the actual language in here, so I think this ordinance is now, other than the few policy questions that I left for you in the memo, is in a form that we could pass and it would work. So I want to make sure that one thing is clear. The strategy here is to enter into a joint powers agreement or a service contract with the county to utilize the county's system for licensing. So what we're trying to do is create an ordinance that fits our zoning and our rules, but would be able to use their licensing system to actually operate it. And then the licenses wouldn't actually come from us at all, they'd come from the county. And the county staff would implement this and maintain it and monitor it and enforce it on the city's behalf. And then the fees that we would collect would be the fees that the county collects, and that they would just go to the county to pay for what the services that they're providing.
And so that fee isn't a fee that we establish, it's just. the
Well,
fee-
we do establish it. This ordinance says we will establish the fee. My vision of it is, it's just the fee that they collect to process licenses. They've already decided that number's appropriate to do the work that they need to do, so it just makes sense to adopt it. But we haven't actually negotiated a contract with the county yet. We've only talked to them about the idea,
Okay.
so.
Got
But
it.
for us, the fee is whatever it takes to do this, right? And right now,
Mhm.
that is, I believe, $400 is what they're charging for an annual license.
Mhm.
Well, how come everybody except for the person on the county board says yes, and she says no?
I know we
Wait a
changed
minute.
it recently, and what was it?
Well,
Did it get changed?
Come on, county.
Yeah, but we don't need to talk about that deal. We just need to know that in the background, that's the idea of how we're going to make this work. Because I don't think we can do this on our own.
Right. And when I was reading through, though, it is true that what we're reading here is pretty close to the language that it will be.
It could be this, so I'm going to just point out some of the
Yeah.
places where you really need to give me some guidance before we send this to the
Okay.
council, and one of which maybe was already too late, which we'll get to in a minute. First, when should this ordinance take effect? So that's not a huge, big question. Probably makes sense at this point to just say January 1st.
Yeah, next year.
And
Since
that
people know.
existing operations have until then to come into compliance. I think that'd probably be the easiest way to do this.
Yeah, that's almost 6 months, so.
And we could even do like some sort of initial license period thing. That's the tricky part. So the language that the county initially adopted, and then when they revisited their ordinance and redid it, they had this initial license period where there was a grace period for folks that were already operating to come and get a license. Well, if we pass this ordinance in July and it becomes effect, maybe we don't want to wait till January 1st. Maybe we want to say everyone that's in the city has 3 months to get a license, but then we're getting close to the end of the year, and so
Yeah.
that's one question. Actually, I guess that's both the first two questions that maybe are kind of the same thing right now.
I can't see that, but is it per, like, unit of? Thinking if somebody has 3 on one, is it a property based or is it unit based?
Oh, right. Isn't it?
I thought it said in here unit-based.
Maybe it does, I could say, like you
I
said,
think
can't
it
remember.
is.
Oh, that's right, yes, it is.
I'm trying to find the specific
You're right.
language that talks about that. It's, okay, so right away in 11605D, a separate rental license is required for each unit on a parcel that has short-term rental or vacation rental operations conducted in it.
Okay. Okay. That's kind of, let's see.
So here's a tougher question. This was not in the county's ordinance, and they spent a lot of time talking about this question, both originally and when they revisited their ordinance. Should there be an absolute limit on the number of licenses? I know some folks say yes, and some say no. Our attorneys, when they helped draft this, put that section in here, just as you might want to think about this. So you might want to think about this.
Yeah, I think, well, when I read that, I'm not sure about the absolute number as much as I think what people will notice and feel is density. And I think that might be a way that gets towards a number. But, I mean, it's harder to do, but I think that's what people will notice is if we have a whole shit ton of them in one place.
But that's what that's the way our stuff is written, so that they are all in one place.
Yeah, that's how we've got our zones set up anyway.
Right? I mean,
Right,
that's,
no,
that's our
well,
within the
I
county,
mean, we've
right?
said
Yeah.
outside of R1, and there's still a whole lot of room left after that. I mean, for them to be,
But we
Yeah.
don't even know how many
really
we have
mixed
right
use.
now.
what's that?
We don't know how many we have right now.
Well, it
And
would be
our-
tough to pick a number tonight, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I
We have
think
a
that's why the
range, yeah.
county didn't at first, because, well, let's just see what
Yeah.
happens. And then came back and, okay, should we set a number? And then decided, you know what? I don't think we should, because,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just thinking about like,
Yeah.
what would people be bothered by? And maybe they'd be bothered if there's a whole bunch of them together, but,
I feel like there'd be, I mean, well, maybe it's just personally,
okay.
I feel like there's more of a, would be more of a, in the areas that it's allowed,
Mhm.
less of an issue because it's in a lot, again, it fits with what the zone district is
Mhm.
to have, whether it's traffic, whether it's all those things, versus like, versus like the ones that are like under the radar.
Mhm.
That's, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. No,
clearly,
I am hearing what you're saying.
that is being operated as,
Yeah.
something, unless somebody knows people from all over the country and happen to be there multiple times.
And so to answer your question, Michael, what would bother people? That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. No.
Someone operating that shouldn't be.
Yeah. No, very good. Very good. Yeah, and you're
I
right.
think-
I mean, we said, go do this here, and then they're doing it, so,
Yeah.
makes sense.
The number question, we participated in the county's discussions when they did it originally and also when they redid it. I thought it was always strange. It was so arbitrary to come up with what a number should be. It's hard to create a reasoning around that is defensible as anything other than an arbitrary number, which doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's really hard to come up with one that makes sense.
Mhm.
And they did decide not to limit it, but to monitor it. So they called their number was based on a growth rate of licenses, and they called it a trigger to review again. So they would have to talk about it again. But there was no license limitations. They also really struggled to just determine what they wanted to call a vacation rental and what they didn't. And we're not going to struggle with that in the city limits as much as they did, because we don't have the number of large resorts that are managed in different ways that exist in the county, which makes it a lot trickier. In the city limits, we've got a handful, 2 or 3 maybe, that look like a hotel but are really being operated like multiple owner vacation rentals. And if they're operated like a hotel, then we say they don't need a license. So that just really limits it to the thing that people would expect a vacation rental to look like.
Right.
Apartment above a business or a single family home or something like that.
All right.
Should the licenses expire if they're not used? Now, this is more of a, I think this was included in the language when there's a limit. If we don't have a limit, then there's no need to worry about this piece of it. As long as they're complying with all of our rules, whether they use it or not, doesn't affect anybody.
Fair enough.
and doesn't the county have to be renewed every year?
Every year, yeah.
So-
But this is saying like, okay, you've got your license, but you don't rent it out for 6 months.
Yeah.
Then,
It's your choice.
yeah. And then the county, of course, has a lot of language about septic systems, and they require certifications. They even have language about water systems, surface water systems in particular, which we don't have any of those in the city limits. We've got wells, but no surface water systems. So, I mean, it's no big deal for us to leave that language in there. When it comes to septic systems, the county says you need a certification of compliance, and that's kind of the tool they've used for a lot of different zoning questions, that whenever you're asking for a variance or a conditional use or something, you also have to do a certification that your septic system is in compliance. Well, we don't do septic system compliance in the city limits, but we do have properties with septics, and I'm sure we have properties with septics that are being rented out as vacation rentals. So, should we require that? Should we add that to our conversation with the county?
I don't think that would be, I mean, I think that would make sense.
I think,
Because
yeah.
it doesn't fall within the county's jurisdiction for dealing with the sanitary systems?
Not necessarily. I mean, they've always been very helpful with that on us, but I don't think that they, as a matter of practice, do certification of compliance in the city limits.
Yeah.
Like- Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think that seems like a no-brainer to make that request because of any, right, one
Yeah.
that is being used.
I don't want to speak for the county, but I imagine that if we found the right fee that would cover their time and expense, that they'd be willing to do that in the city limits too, as long as it wasn't a huge workload issue. So maybe that, if you've got a septic system, you've got to pay the county whatever it costs to come out and do the inspection and give a certificate of compliance too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be fair. All right.
Is there other stuff that people thought about as issues we need to address in this?
Well, having a little experience in them, I think that there was something about a quarter, having it rented on at least once a quarter, and I thought that was kind of a weird request.
Yeah, I remember
because
reading that
there's,
too.
You know, there's such season that you can roll the sidewalks up for some parts, right? Like, so does that mean that they want them to be opened continuously? Or are people shutting down? And, like, I just don't know, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm going to try and find that section.
what was
Yeah.
the root for that? And
I remember reading.
So it's in the same paragraph as
Oh, there
they're
it is.
limiting the total number. So it's the same question, it goes hand in hand. It's the, if they don't get used, should they expire? If we don't have a limit, I don't know why we would care about that.
right.
Yeah.
We did have a limit at one point on the number of full liquor licenses we could offer. And then we did have language like this that said, you need to be open 50 weeks a year because we only get 4 and you're making a commitment to do this. But I think you're right. If we don't need to ask that of someone
If we're not limiting.
there's no
right.
limit.
Yeah. And then how, I mean, that seems like the tracking of that seems like a,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, that seems like just a,
The actual use.
yeah, I mean, to say, I mean, because again, every year they have to renew it, so, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's still an annual.
Yeah, I
right.
mean, it's an annual thing that's being renewed, so if they don't use it for whatever, 5 months instead of, well, whatever, quarterly, I guess, so 4 months instead of 3 months, like, that they would, what does it matter? I mean, they can still come and renew again next year.
Yeah.
Is there, I suppose that there'd be a different, from initial licensing to renewal, a different process? Like you come in and pay the fee versus like having to do the same types of, I don't know anything about like the state's process, and I know like with water and the counties with septics, but within city limits, like is there, you know, is the initial setup of being able to rent a place out different than like, you know, you're up and running and it's time to renew and you go in and just
Do
hand over the check
paperwork
for
and-
$400
yeah.
and sign it again?
I don't think it is different. You have to provide information in the application and in the renewal that demonstrates compliance, and it's kind of the same stuff.
But they're not.
Here's my contact information from my property manager, here's the placard in the building, here's
Yeah.
my certificate from the Department of Health.
Yeah.
I think every year you've got to re-prove that those things are working.
Yeah,
And I mean, I'm sure it doesn't take very much for a going concern to do that, because it's all in place. Whereas it might take a little more effort to get started up, but I think the questions and the process are the same.
okay.
Yeah. That makes sense. So it doesn't sound too onerous. then
Yeah.
do that.
Is it, I mean, are we including it, so in the county, do they include all of the resort, the owned, privately owned, like Bluefins and Caribou Highlands and all of that stuff as well? So, I mean, would we be talking about Cobblestone and talking about East Bay? I mean, is that included in?
Not necessarily. They've got language that, in the definitions, and we modified it slightly to fit our zoning rules a little bit better. But here's what we say is a short-term rental or vacation rental. Any home, cabin, condominium, townhome, apartment, lodging facility, manufactured home, or similar building, so that's kind of the gamut, right? That is advertised or held out to be a place where sleeping quarters are furnished to the public on a nightly, weekly, or less than 30-day time period. So that is everything, and now we've got the exclusion, but excludes similarly described premises which are managed by and regulated as a hotel or bed and breakfast as defined in this code. So for us, a hotel is more than 10 unit structure, so if it's managed together as more than 10 units, they don't need to get permit from us to do this.
So that's how they're excluded. from
But-
that, okay.
If you think about some of the places in town, like the Mayhew, for instance, has 6 units. That doesn't meet the definition of hotel for us. So they would probably be covered by this and be required to get 6 licenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Caribou's the tricky one, Caribou Highlands, because I think they've got multiple management things going on. A lot of individual owners doing individual things and overall management that doesn't have control of everything. And so then it's kind of, okay, well, if you're covered under the broad management, you don't need a license, but if you're on your own, you do, and it's in the same building, and that gets trickier. But I don't think we have any situations like that in the city limits.
Yeah, from those meetings, the county meetings that I went to, that sounded like a mess.
Yeah.
Because people need something and they go to the front desk, they're like, we don't have any, we don't have
Yeah.
anything to do with that, even though it's in the complex.
Call your owner.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah, call your owner. Yeah. So are you gonna send this as it sits to the council?
I'm going to take out the paragraph with a limit of licenses and the requirement that they be rented quarterly.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in, this will take effect January 1st, and we won't have a existing short terms will have a certain number of months. We'll just say they'll have to be in compliance by January 1st.
Is that when the county renews, or did those renew on individual just based on whenever they, how did that?
I'll check on that, just to be sure. I think they just have one renewal date, but I'll check. Because otherwise, we could do this over one, I suppose.
Right.
Seems like having that clearly defined date, though, makes it easier to be like, well, actually, I didn't start doing it until this day, and, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, well, if you're doing it all this calendar year, in theory, it was due on the 1st, you know? All right. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else on that.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, do you have anything in there? Sorry, I locked myself out of Lenny's computer. Do you have, what are the penalties? For either, for operating without?
Yeah. Any person, firm, or corporation, right, blah, 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 shall be a misdemeanor. Each day that a violation continues shall constitute a separate offense. So we haven't set a fee
Yeah.
for that. I don't think. I'm just going to check.
I'm not seeing anything.
No, we refer to our fee schedule. So I think if we wanted to set that penalty, it would be a good idea to do that. We certainly aren't going to charge somebody with a misdemeanor day one first violation when we're talking about jail time, and that's crazy. So in order to, we probably need to come up with a reasonable
I think that
fee
was,
schedule, first offense, second offense kind of thing.
Has the county
Yeah.
ever jailed anybody over?
I think that was one of the things that came up because the penalty or like the fine or whatever it was for non-compliance was actually like less than what the permit was. So it's just like, we'll just run as long as we can.
Yeah.
'Cause so that's,
There's a ton, yeah.
right, so,
I mean, each day that a violation continues can be a bit of a problem for somebody,
right.
Yeah.
even if it was $100 a day.
Right.
It won't take very long to motivate you to just go ahead and pay the fee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then if we did do that arrangement with the joint powers with the county, then that would also allow us to use that system that they
Yeah,
have.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
That's the big thing.
that's really the kicker for me.
Yeah.
I don't think we can do this without that kind of assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're already doing it.
Great.
And I think they have an idea of how many licenses we would have in the city.
Oh, yeah.
So, because when they've used that system, it collects,
That's everybody.
doesn't exclude the city limits.
Right.
Sure.
So they
So
already
they're
know.
collecting it, yeah.
Yeah. And they certainly know how many are paying lodging taxes.
So Mike, will we then have those penalties for council, or will that be a further discussion?
I think we'll need to talk more about
Okay.
that, and I think it's appropriate for that to be a council conversation. I don't
Okay.
think we need to do that here. I'll have something suggested for them, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. All right. If there's nothing else, we could be adjourned. Yeehaw. Nice
Adjourn.
work.
Gavel it.
Nice work, everyone.
Good job.
We're adjourned.